Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I am so lucky that I get to travel the back roads and the back rivers of our area, the state of Jefferson. And right now we're going on a trip down the Rogue, pretty close to where I was born. But my guest is Mary Lou, and I welcome you.
Thank you so much.
What's your connection with the Rogue River?
Well, February of 1981, my husband and I and our children moved out to Galice. We bought what was then the Galice store.
And the Galice store is kind of a unique place. It is town.
It is definitely downtown Galice.
It has what all?
It has a gas pump. It has lodging.
Lodging.
We have a restaurant, a little store, and a raft rental shop.
Okay, and that's Galice, but it's all owned by?
It's all owned by our family.
Okay. And how many guests can you serve? How many?
Well, at the restaurant, we have a deck that overlooks the beautiful Rogue River, and we can serve about 250 people on the deck. And in the summertime, when the music is playing and the weather is nice, there's many nights that it's full. Our lodging accommodations, we can accommodate 60 people. So in the summer, we're a little busy enterprise there.
Very busy. Or during fishing season.
Or during fishing season, is right.
I've been so lucky. We lived in this little tiny trailer, fifth wheel, for the time our house was being built. And I got, what do you call it, cabin fever. I said, let's go down to Galice and just experience something different. You know, 4 solid walls, very, very wonderful. And the food. Now, your restaurant is casual?
Very casual.
What about the other restaurants you've known in Galice? There was one downriver from you where they'd serve family style. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, and actually, you may be thinking of the Galice store at that time.
Oh, it was an old house.
Oh, it may be Kesterson's house, which is about a quarter of the mile down the road, where they did chicken dinners, family style. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And upriver?
Upriver is Morrison's Lodge. They serve, they're closed in the winter also, but they serve by reservations, and then they have lodging, and they serve their guests.
Oh, we did a 50th anniversary for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, Barbara Beck and Lockhart now, Jimmy. Oh, it was so much fun. You know, other people came from other places, and we dined out there in just style. It's kind of like that. But what about the heart of Galice? It seems to be
we have a community hall, which probably is the real focal point. The neighbors gather there more in the winter than in the summer. They get together. There's probably 100 people in the neighborhood, up in the hills and down in the low-lying areas, and up in the mining claims. And they all get together in the winter, usually once a month for potluck. And they have different small events. They have a craft fair and spring garden fair there in the April. Well, they've changed it now to May, or Mother's Day weekend. But that is really fun, and we get a lot of people from Grants Pass come out for that.
Oh, people from all over. They say they heard about it, and you save your pots and any kind of containers all year because you may not want to grow plants in pots, but they do. And so don't ever throw a pot away. If just call Bernie and I'll come pick them up.
Yeah.
They recycle them down to Galice.
And the money that they make from that, the crafts, there's a percentage that goes to the person that made the crafts, but then a big percentage goes to the community hall for refurbishing and the electricity and the insurance and the ongoing expenses that a building has.
And it's it's called the Carpenter Store because
Well, originally was owned by Mary Carpenter, who lived there. And Carpenter's Island is right across the river, which was named for her also. And it's such a lovely area.
and fun stories. People I've interviewed who actually would go down the river and stop it there and get resupplied.
Yes.
Because that was what Carpenter Store was
Yeah,
all
the
about.
Carpenter Store was all about, you bet.
Well, Mary Lou, you brought that shirt. I can't help but ask you, what is Boys and Girls Club?
Well, I've been on the board for Boys and Girls Club in Josephine County for 8 years now. I'll start at the very beginning as for myself with the club. A couple of the board members asked me one time about coming onto their board, and I really didn't know anything about the club. So I sat back for about a year, not joining, just kind of watching what went on with that organization, what they did with their money, how responsible they were to the community, to the kids. And after that year, decided that, yes, I did want to be a part of that organization.
And how safe it was.
And how safe it was, is exactly right.
That's top priority.
So it's what we call a positive place for kids. So I probably can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the ability to belong to the organization. I don't interact a lot with the kids. I am more on the fundraising. I go out and I pound people's doors every once in a while to gather money to keep the organization going, because even though things look good on the outside, as they do now with our new club especially, there's always the internal trying to get the payroll done, trying to keep the electricity done. And a lot of people have a misconception that now that we went to the community and we were able to build this new building, which was so needed, that we're finished and we don't need their help anymore. And that's not true. We continually need the support. We need to keep those kids in something in the afternoon after school, because otherwise they go home to an empty home. They'll go home to a home that they're not going to get another meal once they have their lunch at school. So what we're trying to provide them is a place to go for homework in the afternoon, so that gets done. We give them a full meal at 3:30 in the afternoon. And we give them sports, crafts, things that help build their self-esteem.
Oh, and this program is so good for kids, and it's not limited to low-income families
Oh,
at
not at
all.
all. Not at all.
Because
not at all.
I talk to young people who went to there as growing up, and it was just a great place to meet, to do things with your friends, get off the street, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. We make no, you cannot, we don't compare any kids.
Good.
They're all the same to us. None of them know whether they're low income, high income, medium income. They don't know. They just know that they're all coming to the same place for the same reason.
Now, do you know anything about the original building?
Oh,
The
I do.
Quonset hut.
The Quonset hut. The Quonset hut, one of the reasons that we finally decided we have to do something about a new building was the Quonset hut was leaky in the winter and very, very hot in the summertime. It was a building that was put there as an armory. After it was an armory, it became more of a community building. George Foreman actually did some practice fighting in there.
Yeah, because he was part of the Job Corps.
That's
wasn't
right. That's right. He was part of the Job Corps.
he?
And
Road Community College.
And that building has been used for many things. The college used it for different things. There was different community events that met there. And it was just, I want to say old to begin with, but because of the materials. So when we decided that we had to have something different for the kids. Not only was it raining inside in the winter and scorching inside in the summertime, but it was just bursting at the seams because of the kids coming, and we needed more room for them if we were going to continue our mission.
Well, now, do you know where the Quonset came from in the first place?
I don't.
Oh, somebody someplace knows. I swear I saw it being moved from Camp White. But maybe I'm,
No,
so much came from Camp White.
Yes, and that could have come from Camp White.
It built houses in here. It built houses over in, Klamath got theirs from the internment camp.
Mm-hmm.
But these buildings where, wood was so hard to come by, and
Yes.
buildings were so needed after the war. I'd like some more history about that.
We did keep a part of the building when we built the new club. We kept the one solid frame of one of the rooms, so that we could always say we had some of the original club there.
That's where we came from.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump on to current history about you. I was lucky enough to go to the Zonta sale, and who was the guest of honor? The honored guest, but our own Mary Lou. They were saying, thank you, Mary Lou, for your contribution, Galice, and also your contribution with Boys and Girls Club. Few other things they bragged about.
Well, I'm on the board for Faith House, which is a Christian-based transition home for women in Grants Pass. And I have served on the board for Chamber of Commerce and on the board for the Sunny Wolf CRT, which is the community response team for Sunny Valley, Wolf Creek, Merlin, and Galice. And I think that the majority of us, that when we are doing things for other people, we never do it for recognition. We do it because the Spirit has led us, that God has given us compassion and empathy. And I think that if you don't use those things, you've wasted your whole life.
Beautiful, beautiful, Mary Lou. And in the process, it develops us.
Oh,
incredibly.
Incredibly. I have always felt that whatever I do, I get back so much in return. Because you don't think about what you're going to get. You don't think about getting a return. But being in Galice over the years, there's many times I have, we're way out there, and in the wintertime, it's a drive. And there's been times when I've really questioned, okay, Lord, I've been out here long enough. It's time for me to move on. And
a nice condominium on downtown Portland sounds real good.
It does in the wintertime, that's
You're
for
how
sure.
many miles out?
I'm 15 miles from the freeway, so basically about 21 miles from Grants Pass, which isn't a long journey, but in the wintertime, that weather is kind of dreary and it's rainy, and I feel a little sorry for myself sometimes, but
especially when you run out of milk or something.
That's right. And that powdered milk sometimes isn't the same as that fresh milk.
She's on her way into town on the cell phone to me today. Says, well, I can't go back for it. But it's neighborly, isn't it?
It's very neighborly. It's very neighborly. Mentioning the community hall earlier, this last weekend, one of the neighbors, Charlotte Garcia, and I think you know Charlotte.
I sure do.
She went to Italy for cooking school this summer.
Ooh.
And so I had told her, oh, Charlotte, when you come back, you'll have to do a cooking class. So Sunday afternoon, she put a cooking class together for 20 of us.
Ooh.
It was wonderful. So not only does she have a wonderful spirit, but the community spirit is really good.
Well, once I learned about your community, I said, I want to belong. I'm a little bit up U Creek from Galice, and really, I guess you go jump off Joe to the Rogue River, jump off Joe in U Creek, and that's right where I live. It's been an experience to community with you.
Well, we have loved that with you.
And it's community like I guess Grandma and Grandpa would have had.
That's right.
People sharing recipes and crafts and the garden fair. And something really important that happens down at Galice.
Well, the fishing, for sure.
It started with wooden boats, and you can find one of them down at Rand.
Yes.
So when you drive down, don't miss Rand Ranger Station.
Oh, and they've got that fixed up real nice now, where you go in and you can see all the some history, and you can see what's there to do on the river. It's gotten to be a nice little interpretive center without really being called an interpretive center.
Well, and what was Rand during the Depression?
Oh, that was the CC camp.
And I had a guest on whose dad was a cook for those CCC boys, and we had some pictures of it. Oh, it's so exciting. Right outside this Rand, which is a ranger station, or was?
It was a ranger station. It really is now manned by the Forest Service and BLM more than the Forest Service now. And they issue the river permits for the control time during the river, which is May 15th to October 15th. You have to have a permit to go on the river, and that's where you check in to get your permit.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about this year 2005 on the river? What happened that was most unusual?
Well, most unusual was, I think, the fire in the Lower Rogue Canyon by Paradise Ranch and by Half Moon. And it was burning up the hillside so much they decided that they were going to have to close the river. Well, it was right in the middle of the season for the rafting companies. And the logistics for the rafting companies, it has to be pretty, they have to have it pretty precise. The people are flying in, staying someplace the night before, getting on the river for their 3 and 4 day trips, staying at the different lodges along the way, which everybody has a reservation, and then pulling out and then flying home. Well, they closed the river.
Because there was fire on both sides?
On both sides of it coming down. And there was a section where the BLM felt it was not safe for the people to be, because the helicopters were dipping water out of there. They had to make sure that the helicopters were safe, the firefighters were safe, as well as the boaters and hikers.
Oh, yes.
So the river outfitters, the people had paid this money. They were flying in. And they had to figure out, what do we do now? So some of them were
different.
What do we do now is probably a real calm term as to what they were doing, pulling their hair out. And so they had to do some logistic changing to go onto the Umpqua River and the Klamath River. And some of them were successful in being able to make that happen. Some of that didn't happen for all of them, but
I'm sure the very day that this closed, that person was sitting there with their all ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hoping they'll come back when we don't have a fire. The year 2006 looks real promising.
Yes, it does. What happens to us and to a lot of the people in Grants Pass, the people who are going to go on the Rogue River, is the cancellations immediately. But luckily it didn't last real long. It was maybe 10 days, but 10 days of nightmare for the river outfitters. And the Rogue River really has a good reputation. It's not really known for its heavy whitewater, but it's sure known for its beauty. It just is a beautiful day every day.
You sound like a paid ad.
I'm telling you, I go down the river every year, down the lower rogue. I never get tired of it. I am in awe all the time I'm down there. It's just gorgeous.
Well, I had a chance to talk to the people who've had a lodge there for 100 years.
Oh.
Down in Coos, is it Coos County? Or?
Mm-hmm.
And their name, the lodge is just a trip.
Is it Tootin?
No, it's up the river quite a ways. And the family, same family, is still running it. The matriarch of the family now is retired, but the next generation.
Oh, Lucas Lodge.
That's the name of it.
Lucas Lodge.
What a incredible time I've had there. We stayed overnight when they brought down these new boats that are just like the old boats. Now, this is a Knutson boat, and primarily they went down on the Klamath River and up at Diamond Lake. They make these boats. When I was a child, they were here on the Rogue, just as a family fun thing. Mm-hmm. And it has been, Carl Knutson was on the show, and I was tickled to death because I have such positive memories. But can't you imagine the Lucases in the olden days? She probably looked pretty much like this.
Yes, absolutely.
100 years ago?
Absolutely.
102.
Yeah. I stayed actually at Lucas Lodge 3 years ago.
Okay.
With a group of women that I was fishing with. We all stayed there.
Well, you know what? Women are most welcome there. It's a safe place. When we drove in, we had to go the back way because the roads had kind of washed out the previous year. Thank goodness someone knew the way. You've got favorite stories, favorite people that you had at the restaurant, or favorite...
I do. When we first moved out there, Wes Perrin was living out there. And my father, when we bought Galice, one of the reasons we ended up buying that was my father had just died, and my father and I were real close. And I had told my husband, I want to make a change in my life. Well, buying Galice was quite a change.
From a city
From a city slicker. And Wes Perrin was out there. And Wes Perrin just became one of my best friends. He became a father figure to me, a grandfather figure to my kids. And he just was an amazing gold miner. He was one of these men who not only did he mine, but he sold shares in the mines. And he was quite a promoter. He was a good man. And then Bud Lewis was another man. He has since passed away also. But Bud Lewis lived on the property that his father had homesteaded out there. And Zane Gray used to stop and stay with that family and then go downriver. So I think that those two men were just very interesting.
Well, when I first learned about Galice in my adult life, Zora Gallagher was the one that just took me in and did a show with me, and she lived in that perfect house that looks like it just stepped out of a movie set.
Yes.
And thank goodness her girls are continuing the same spectacular landscape that I found Zora out there in the garden doing, and she was 96 or so, and she was out there working.
Yes, yeah, she was an amazing woman, just a sweetheart, and her family is just such an asset to the community.
And she started out doing feeding those people off the river.
Yes, well,
lodging.
Yes, they used to have lodging there and would feed them there. There was a couple cabins in the back where the people stayed at.
What an incredible story. If you want to turn back the hands of time, if you want to take some time out, go up one of these rivers and just take take a week and say, I want to get reacquainted with myself
Yes, absolutely.
and nature and
Yeah.
my God, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
You've got a couple minutes left. Tell me your
Okay.
favorite story.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite story is probably the story that brought me here. My husband and I were living in Southern California with our 3 small children. And we were living close to East Los Angeles, and the kids had started school, and I really did not want to raise them in the LA school district down there. We were getting closer to the rough neighborhoods, and one day I said to him, I just don't want to live this life anymore. So we said, okay, we're moving. We sold everything we had. We got a station wagon and a little travel trailer, and we decided to move to Boise, Idaho. That sounded real good.
Okay.
So we packed everything up, and one of the girls that I had worked with had moved a few months earlier to Grants Pass. And I begged my husband, please, I had never been up here, please, can we stop in Grants Pass, because I know I won't see my friend Bobby ever again. We stopped here, fell in love with Josephine County, and never left. We never got to Boise. We've had just a wonderful life. I love this area. I wouldn't move. The undertaker's going to have to take me from here. I love it here.
Oh, and in Galice at this carpenter store, they even do services for the deceased.
Yes.
I was just at a wonderful memorial service. And these people are, it's just a treat to know you.
Thank
and
you.
to know these people. Now, are you, Zonta? I think they were right on when they said, you're the woman of the year.
Oh, thank you, Bernie. That's awfully kind.
And thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh,
and I'll
thank
see
you.
your daughter. She's taken over, hasn't
Yes,
she?
Debbie has taken over Galice. I'm actually retired from there now. So.
She's retired to do volunteer work. I understand that, too.
And I love that.
Oh, wonderful. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thank you so much for tuning in the show and meeting the people. I brought along this little trinket here. Now, you might remember this was how you saw 3D pictures. Now you can look at the Rogue River on River Wild.
Yes?
That's right down at Galice, half of it.
Yes.
Merrill Street and all the rest. They
The fact is, we saw it the other night on television again.
Great. Thanks for tuning in.